southwest England. Here, just 17 miles north of Stonehenge, is Avebury, the largest megalithic stone circle in the world. Originally constructed with hundreds of monoliths, some experts believe this immense site was once a major center of religious ritual in Great Britain.
Avebury is probably the most significant and most interesting megalithic site in Great Britain, partly because it's the largest.
And just imagine the magnitude of what we're dealing with here. There's now been a whole village built inside it because it's so large. The stones are huge. They're probably between 20 and 50 tons each. They're rough-hewn stones in a great circle, and there were even 2 stone circles within Avebury itself. And these were roughly the same size as Stonehenge each.
Old antiquarians once said that Stonehenge was like a parish church compared to Avebury, which was like a great cathedral.
Approaching Avebury from at least 2 different directions were avenues of stones that led off into the local landscape. Plus, on top of that, there were other monuments locally as well. Silbury Hill, the largest man-made mound in Europe, and the West Kennet Long Barrow, which was a burial chamber dating back perhaps 6,000 years.
Encompassing more than 28 acres, mainstream historians believe Avebury was constructed from 2850 BC to 2200 BC by Neolithic Britons, and like Stonehenge, was used during sacred rituals.
They were celebrating the different cycles of the years, the changing of the seasons. It seemed as if this was necessary within their society to show that there was some kind of rhythm and cycle within nature that was not only understood, but could be controlled in some manner. By creating something like this, there is stability in the world. Chaos and disorder cannot reign.
Avebury was considered to be a meeting point. It's significant at the solstices, at the midsummer and the midwinter. But exactly what took place there and exactly what the people who built it believe, we don't know.
According to some researchers, there may be a profound purpose for this circular alignment of stones at Avebury. One perhaps connecting the monoliths to celestial beings that visited the site thousands of years ago.
The area around Avebury has always been associated with kind of magic and mystery. There's been lots of orbs seen there, UFOs. There's been ghost sightings. There's been hundreds of crop circles around the area. So it's got this strange, mystical feeling about it.
The mythologies, in conjunction with Avebury, always point to the sky, to some celestial beings, the shining ones as they were called, descending from the sky and educating people in various disciplines: agriculture, mathematics, geometry, engineering.
In many cases, with Avebury and other giant megaliths, it's as if they are set up by some ancient people, perhaps an extraterrestrial race, who essentially went out and surveyed these wilderness lands. And as part of their surveying, they left what we would call gigantic survey markers. And then at certain places, for unknown reasons, they made stone circles, like Avebury.
It is pretty clear that in Avebury you have this fenced-off environment whereby probably only certain people were able to come because the stones somehow embodied the deities. Maybe they thought that they could communicate with the deities through these monolithic stones.
Peru, home of the world's longest mountain range, the Andes, the spine of South America. Here, in a high river valley, among peaks towering over 20,000 feet, the Inca established their capital city of Cusco. Above Cusco, at an elevation of more than 12,000 feet, looms the ancient fortress of Sacsayhuamán, whose immense stone walls may hold secrets which predate the Inca themselves.
My feeling, very strong feeling, is that we're looking at a two-phase construction site in many of the so-called Inca stone monuments. And that the Inca structures sit on top of much more ancient rock-cut structures and megalithic structures that we just don't know who built them. And this actually fits with the Inca's own view.
Like many Inca sites, Sacsayhuamán features astonishing stonework, but not all of it credited to the Inca. According to conventional archaeology, the Quilqué culture built the older sections of the site approximately 1,000 years ago. But the Inca themselves believed the site was constructed by an earlier unnamed race of people, led by a powerful god who descended from the skies.
Throughout time, there has been witness to a god named Viracocha that visited the South American people and blessed them and gave them all types of technology. And some of his physical characteristics make him stand out from the indigenous population because he was a very tall, pale-skinned, white-haired being.
But did this god Viracocha actually exist? Could he have been, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest, a visitor from an alien world? If so, it might help to explain just how the ancient site was constructed.
This rock weighs about 20 tons. This is minuscule compared to many of the rocks at Sacsayhuamán. Today we have heavy machinery to move such stones, but in the ancient times, especially the Inca, they would have used massive human workforces working for massive amounts of time. A rule of thumb is it takes about 10 to 20 men to move a 1-ton rock. So when you're talking hundreds of tons, you're talking thousands of men.
What we see is a culture who have got the technology to quarry giant blocks of stone, move them to the site where they want to build, and then to stack and cut and articulate these massive blocks into, in some cases, almost indestructible structure.
Talk about granite, you're talking about a composition of feldspar, mica, and quartz. So you need diamond to actually braid it or cut it. We would use diamond today to cut granite. Those are the kind of discoveries that lead one to question whether they were really using the tools in the ancient toolbox or whether there was something else at work.
Shaman Jorge Delgado has spent most of his life studying the mysterious structures of Peru, many built prior to the rise of the Inca Empire.
It's amazing, all the weight of the stones. You know, it's difficult, definitely, for any human to move, even in groups. And the other aspect is how it's put together. In some stones, we will see still now there is like some marks that it seems that it was dissolved.
The walls are put together with blocks of stone weighing 50 or 100 tons, cut and shaped like the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle so that they lock together so tightly that you can't even get a sheet of paper between them.
There are signs in many of these stones that show very large amounts of thermal heat have been applied to mold the stones in such a way that they fit perfectly. And so it really does raise a lot of questions.
If you look at the style the Sacsayhuamán wall was built, the blocks look as if they've been molded like putty. If you can mold stone into place, then all of a sudden, as crazy as this sounds, it makes more sense because there is no mortar that has been used.
Sigiriya, Sri Lanka. Known as Lion's Rock, this natural monolith towers 600 feet over the surrounding landscape.
It was discovered in 1831 by a British Army officer named Jonathan Forbes. What he found there was a natural monolith, a giant cliff rock, and stairs had been cut into it, and then a palace had been built on top, and it's extremely remote area and high up vertical cliffs.
Sigiriya was certainly a Buddhist monastery from the first millennium BC. And then around 500 AD, it actually became a fortress and a palace for a local king. There are gardens and palaces on the very top of the rock. Then there's various caves, and within these caves are different murals.
These fresco paintings feature portraits of women that some researchers believe represent ladies of the king's court, while others suggest the women are religious figures. But according to ancient astronaut theorists, the images reveal more evidence of extraterrestrial contact in the distant past.
We find some of the most amazing paintings of people emerging out of the clouds. And they're actually floating in midair. And you have to wonder, what did our ancestors try to depict here? According to the local myths and legends, Sigiriya was created with the help of the gods who descended from the sky. What a beautiful poetic way to depict something that they might have witnessed. It was a complete misunderstanding of a visitation by technologically advanced space travelers.
Is it possible these paintings depict actual sky beings descending to Earth, as ancient astronaut theorists suggest? And if so, might there be another, more profound reason why ancient man built a city on top of this massive monolith?
We see so often how these enigmatic rocks are worshipped by our ancestors. They somehow are gateways between our world and the world of the gods. And so in Sigiriya, we're seeing this once again confirmed.
The very concept of a monolith can be very important and very sacred to a people. Also, the concept of the mountain reaching to heaven. It makes me think of the celestial or the cosmic Mount Meru.
Mount Meru is a name used in Buddhist cultures to describe a cosmic mountain. It's actually described in ancient literature as a mass of golden light, like a golden blazing fire in the shape of a mountain. It's at the center of the universe, and it exists at many levels from there, not in a physical sense, but in an energy sense. The gods live on the slopes of it. They all have palaces and cities.
Mount Meru was a place of the gods. It was seen as the place of connection, a place of communication with the gods themselves. It's the point of access between this world and heaven.
Sigiriya is basically a small-scale replica of Mount Meru. Our ancestors took to this rock and began to build on top of that. It is saying, this is the rock we have in this specific place, so we're going to use it in order to establish an uplink and a downlink to the gods in the sky.
Yonaguni Island, Japan, September 1997. Multiple teams of researchers, geologists, and professional divers launch an underwater expedition near the southernmost of the remote Ryukyu Islands. They are there to investigate a mysterious stone configuration known as the Yonaguni Pyramid. less than 100 feet below the surface, the divers come across rock formations, including pillars, wedges, platforms, and giant steps that appear to be carved out of the bedrock.
The Yonaguni monument has been altered by carving, and it has been very carefully carved into megaliths, platforms, stairways. The only problem is that it's built for giants. The stairs are immense. So who built this monument, and what cataclysmic events sent it to the bottom of the sea?
There are all these different cuts that seem to be of artificial origin and not of a natural origin, because it's too precise. Was the Yonaguni artificially altered at a time when the water levels of the oceans were lower? We know that this happened at some point during the last ice age, which was 14,000 years ago.
Now, we have to remember that at the end of the last ice age, sea levels were as much as 300 plus feet lower than they are today. So at that time, this structure would have been above sea level. It would have been, at that time, dry land.
Could the massive underwater structure, known as Yonaguni, really be the remnants of an advanced civilization that existed here on Earth more than 10,000 years ago? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and claim that further evidence can be found in Polynesian stories of a long-lost continent called Mu.
The Yonaguni monument may represent the remains of a trans-Pacific civilization that the Polynesians call Mu. There is evidence throughout Polynesia for an ancient megalithic civilization. There are similar ruins off the coast of Ponape. The ruins are partially submerged.
This lost continent of Mu was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and it encompassed Hawaii and Tahiti, Tonga and Samoa, and even Easter Island were all part of this lost continent of Mu. And the central pyramid complex in Tonga is called Mu-A.
While most conventional scholars dismiss the story of Mu as being mythology, ancient astronaut theorists suggest an enormous new discovery in Southeast Asia could provide irrefutable evidence that this lost civilization did, in fact, exist. West Java, Indonesia. Located in Karyamukti village is a mysterious site called Gunung Padang, or Mountain of Enlightenment. For thousands of years, the local population revered Gunung Padang as a sacred site, and many came here to meditate among the giant stone blocks. But in 1914, Dutch explorers discovered that the basalt columns scattered across the hilltop are not natural features at all. They are, in fact, fragments of an ancient megalithic site. A century later, in 2013, the Indonesian government sponsored an excavation to see if anything was hidden beneath the layers of dirt and rubble. What they found was evidence that suggests Gunung Padang is the world's oldest step pyramid.
Gunung Padang is probably the most remarkable megalithic structure in the whole of Southeast Asia. And what it consists of is a hillside on the top of which are a series of terraces on which are structures made from basaltic pillars and other types of structure.
But what is really important is the age of it. It has been analyzed by Indonesian geologists, and he seemed to have very good data from boreholes, from radiocarbon analysis, from seismic sections, as I've done around the Great Sphinx, that This site goes back an incredible 20,000 or so years, maybe slightly more than that.
According to geologists, 20,000 years ago, Java, where Gunung Padang is located, was not an isolated island, but the southernmost part of a subcontinent known as Sundaland. This has led some researchers to speculate that Gunung Padang, with its high elevation, could have been at the pinnacle of a civilization that disappeared sometime around 10,000 BC. When melting ice caps flooded the region and turned it into the series of islands it is today.
The compelling suggestion is that there was some sort of civilization here before this flood took place, that they built this with advanced technology, and therefore they were extraterrestrial visitors to the Earth. And that's why archaeologists are not finding the evidence that we would normally expect to see, showing a geometric progression of technology leading up to the ability to build a gigantic pyramid well over 12,000 years ago.